Amber Alert Podcast.
Welcome, Amber Alert Podcast, episode 94, part 2. I am your host, Amber Starkey, and it is a great day to be alive. If any of you were part of part 1, I told you that this is the middle portion of 94, and what we're going to talk about, like I said, for the podcast, each episode has 3 parts, which I'm now making 3 individual parts rather than one long episode. For whatever reasons. Because if there's just one part that you want to tune into, it's not going to be like a 4-hour video where you got to find the part that you want. So for this part, this probably will not take all that long. Oops, I think I forgot about Instagram. Did I forget about Instagram? No, I didn't. Okay. I don't even know if it's working. Anyway, so this is where we do our conspiracy theory, or we dip into unexplained things, which oftentimes then get into the supernatural. So this particular thing happened in none other than Ohio, which is where I live, where I grew up. I'm an Ohio native. For everybody who talks trash about Ohio like it's the worst place to live, it's a great place to live. I've lived in multiple places, and Ohio is my favorite. However, we certainly do have some dark history, and I don't know that it's Ohio's fault. In fact, it predates Ohio being what a state, but there's some stuff that has happened in Ohio that it is still happening in Ohio. And this particular thing I'm going to talk about is called the wow signal. So I'm going to tell you what it is, and then I'll tell you some other things that have happened that kind of make this more significant, given the location where this happened, and then some other stuff about Ohio's history. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the wow signal, let's explain it. In 1977, scientists operating in a large radio telescope in Ohio detected a radio signal that has never been explained, even decades later. This event is known as the wow signal. So this happened in 1977, and to this day, nobody can explain what it was or how it happened. So what happened? The signal was detected once for 72 seconds. So somebody was not asleep on the job to know that this happened. It came from deep space, not from Earth. It was recorded cleanly by a professional scientific instrument. It was strong, narrow, and precise, not random noise. After it ended, it never happened again. The astronomer who saw it circled the data and wrote, "Wow," that's where the name comes from. So, why this signal stood out? The signal appeared at 1420, is that hertz or whatever? I don't know anything about frequencies. MHz, for people who know what that is. A very specific frequency called the hydrogen line. Why that matters: hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. This frequency is the same everywhere in space. Scientists have long predicted that if any civilization wanted to get noticed, you see where this is going? This would be the most logical frequency to use. Nature almost never produces signals this narrow and clean at this frequency. So the signal landed at the most meaningful frequency possible by coincidence or design. Let me just, before I keep reading, let me just say this. You're going to start to run into where in the scientific world, where the bridge, I wouldn't call it the bridge. You have 2 positions, really. You have the evolutionists who believe everything just happened. It's just a series of incredibly insane coincidences that made the earth and everything in it, and then you have the people who believe intelligent design who are actually level-headed and are like, there's no way. It takes more faith to believe that the earth and everything in it and on it was created by coincidence. It takes a lot more faith to believe that than it does to just believe someone knew what they were doing. Someone knew the exact precision that was necessary to make all of this, to make it work, to make earth habitable. It's set to a very specific degree. If it varied by 1 degree, this planet couldn't have life here. The easy explanation is that someone knew what needed to be done in order for this to all work. And if you don't accept that, then you have to go the coincidence route, which is much harder to explain. It can't really be explained. The odds of it all working out that way are like, I couldn't even tell you what the math is on it. 1 in every gazillion, if that's even a word or a number. So anyway, back to what I just read, it's saying this is the signal landed at the most meaningful frequency possible by coincidence or design. So again, if it's a crazy coincidence, then the easy explanation is probably somebody knew the frequency and where exactly it needed to be in order for it to get picked up. It's much easier to believe that than it was just a very, very crazy coincidence. So that being said, move on. What it was not, scientists ruled out several things. It wasn't a hoax, equipment malfunction, Earth-based interference, satellites or aircraft, known natural space phenomena like pulsars or quasars. That's why the signal remains officially unexplained. So I think they did the right thing by trying to first explain it via a natural explanation. That's always the best thing to do. Exhaust your natural explanations first. So the main theories people propose, people generally fall into a few camps. One would be alien technology, meaning a non-human civilization using technology, not spiritual, not God, not angels, purely physical and technological. This is considered possible, not proven. Obviously, that's probably the first, but after you've exhausted your natural explanations, a lot of people would jump to aliens. It has to be. They're trying to communicate with us. The second one, unknown natural phenomenon, something in physics we don't yet understand, considered, but no known natural process fits the signal's properties. So I'll give you that. That's, you could say, maybe there is something going on that we have not advanced enough to know about. That's certainly a decent explanation, I think, in this situation. Number 3, human interference we don't recognize, considered unlikely due to how clean and isolated the signal was. I think that's a stupid explanation. That would be one of the worst and least likely, in my opinion. Next. Considered unlikely due to how clean. Yeah, I already read that. So a one-time event we can't reproduce. This is the most honest scientific position. We observed it correctly, but it won't repeat, so we can't test it. None of these explanations fully works. Especially because the signal never came back. So it was this one-time thing for 72 seconds. No one knows how or what, and it hasn't come back. So why Ohio matters, because remember, this happened in Ohio. Ohio wasn't special because of magic or mystery. It was special because the telescope was very sensitive. The radio environment was quiet. It happened to be looking at the right place at the right time. Again, a couple more coincidences. Ohio didn't cause the signal. It simply noticed it. Next. Why this still matters today. Nearly 50 years later, better telescopes exist. The same region of space has been rechecked. The signal has never repeated. No natural explanation has been confirmed. That puts the WOW signal in a rare category. A real, well-recorded event with good data and no final explanation. The honest bottom line, the WOW signal really happened. It was detected properly. It appeared at the most meaningful frequency in radio astronomy. It does not fit no natural or human-made causes. Some people suggest alien technology, not God. Science can't confirm what it was. Science also can't dismiss it. So it remains what scientists are least comfortable with, a genuine mystery, not solved, not debunked, and not exaggerated. That's why it's still talked about and why it's one of the cleanest unsolved anomalies in modern science. So, is this what I just read? Yeah, let me see what this is. Okay, so before I read the next stuff, you have obviously people of differing opinions on the subject, which makes sense because If you don't know what it is, then you have a blank space to fill in with whatever you think is most likely. And naturally, your personal opinions, your experiences, what in which areas you're educated in, or whichever way you lean, is probably going to influence whatever explanation you come up with. Now, what I think, I'm trying to figure out if I should say this now or wait to read more. I'll go ahead and say it. So I think, again, when it comes to the coincidences, very specific frequency, and that's what people said. If there was intelligent life somewhere else, if there was, say, whether you want to call them aliens, whatever label you want to put on them, if there was intelligent life somewhere else and they wanted to contact us or make us aware of their existence, that's a likely frequency that they would use. Why? Because it's the most prevalent everywhere because of hydrogen or whatever. So that kind of is already leaning you toward one explanation. Otherwise, you're left with a bunch of coincidences. Wow, it just happened to be this. So here's what I think. I think that signal was intentional. I think it came from something non-human. I think that there were no coincidences about it. I even think Ohio wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't just because they have clear signals here. I think it's because of other things that have happened in the area. And I'll get to what now, I don't believe in aliens. If you've been listening or following, you know I don't believe in aliens. So when we talk non-human, I don't mean life on like another planet in the sense that people tend to, you picture Martians or whatever. I don't think that's what it is. But I do think there is an access point, or I would say multiple access points in Ohio, where we have our, I don't want to say atmosphere open to certain activity. And I think it goes back probably thousands of years. Why? Because we still have the evidence of some things that were here scattered throughout Ohio. So I will pull this together if you just stick with me. Let me tell you, I was curious when it came to this signal, have other strange, unexplained things happened in the same geographical area. So here's where we get into that. So again, the WOW signal happened in 1977. So from 1973 to 74, what happened just a few years before that? Ohio had a UFO wave. So one of the largest mass sighting waves in U.S. history occurred in Ohio just a few years earlier. The key facts: hundreds of witnesses, police officers among them, radar confirmations in some cases, objects described as silent, low altitude, maneuvering in ways aircraft couldn't, which is UFO sightings really to a T. The U.S. Air Force investigated and did not assign a definitive explanation. This wave directly influenced why Ohio was considered a good site for sky monitoring. So again, I don't think this WOW signal came in because of clear skies or whatever. I think there was already something here in this area that then opened or allowed or attracted that kind of contact or whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't necessarily call it contact, but a reveal of some kind. Let's keep reading. So Ohio also has the Serpent Mound among many other mounds. Why is this relevant? Well, it's over 1,000 years old. And possibly older, probably much older, I'd say. What's odd, it's the largest effigy mound in North America, aligned with solstices and lunar cycles, built on a meteor impact structure, rebuilt multiple times over centuries. No natural explanation exists for why that exact site was chosen, other than for some reason it mattered, huh? That doesn't mean paranormal, but it does mean intentional selection of an unusual location. And here's the thing, if you have studied the mounds, and I don't mean through the normal academic channels, because you're not going to get the truth. There's a narrative there. The narrative is that the Native Americans built them, because they're literally, I grew up in Ohio. There is a mound actually on the road I grew up on. And they're called Indian mounds. That's what we were all told, is they're Indian mounds. Now, Native Americans did, in many cases, build on top of mounds that were already there. But if you actually study this, Native Americans have admitted they're like, these things were here when we got here. We didn't build these. And it's interesting, they also have stories of giants who were there before they were. And they built the mounds. They built the serpent mound. They built all these other, there's a circle mound, there's a bunch of other stuff. And of course, they're not only in Ohio, there's stuff like this all across the country. But Ohio has a lot. And so they have found, as they've dug into many of these mounds, they've found giant bones. They have found sacrificial altars. They have found skulls that are almost human, red hair, which aligns with the Native American stories of red-haired giants who were there before the Native Americans were, and they were terrible. They were cannibals. They were sexually deviant. They were awful and terrifying. So that, and again, if we read, I'm tying it together now, basically, when we read the Bible where giants are mentioned, giants were evil always in the Bible, and God actually tasked Israel with killing them. But where did the giants come from? Well, this is where I always end up back at in every episode, basically, Genesis chapter 6. It tells us exactly where the giants came from. It says the sons of God, which were fallen angels, which were evil. They reproduced with human women, and the result of that union, which was ungodly and perverse and corrupt, the result of that was the Nephilim, which were the giants. So the giants were clearly something evil from the beginning, and there's evidence of them having been here in the Americas, and all the way down to where, like, Christopher Columbus and some of those early people went, and down in South America and other places like that. Same thing, that the people there, they actually saw them, like, back in like the 1500s, and they wrote about them. So they were still around then. There were giants. The accounts are there. If you want to dig up this information, you can find it. You can absolutely find it. I have books on it. It's there. So the mounds, and the thing is, when they have these like the celestial alignments, well, first of all, and no disrespect to the Native Americans, they did not have the mathematics or the knowledge to be able to construct the mounds. First of all, they didn't have it. And you can't even really tell what you're doing until you get an aerial view, which says something. Same with the Nazca lines in Peru and plenty of other places. So then, and again, by their own admission, they didn't build them. Some of them built on top of them, but they're like, yeah, we didn't build these. So somebody who had the capability of being in the air somehow, and also had advanced knowledge and technology beyond their time, beyond what people had at the time, were able to construct these things. So it's all here in Ohio. And you have the UFO sightings in Ohio, which speaks to what's going on in this geographical area where there seems to be unexplained things happening. What is this stuff? What does it have to do with each other? I'll tell you more in a second, but I have like 2 more things I'm going to read. So we have mounds, right? Earthquake and light reports through the 80s and 90s. Southern Ohio has recurrent reports of earthquake lights. That doesn't make sense. Strange glows during seismic activity. Sounds without visible sources. These are rare but geologically real phenomena and still not fully understood. They don't explain the wow signal, but they show Ohio isn't geologically boring. And that's the point. I'm not trying to say these things are causing each other. I'm simply showing you there's not normalcy in Ohio. So post 1977, no repeat signal anywhere. This is the strangest part. SETI or SETI scans increased massively after WOW. Sensitivity improved by orders of magnitude. Ohio location rescanned repeatedly. Nothing. If it were a natural repeating source, we'd see it again. Human tech, it would leave signatures everywhere. And an instrument error, it would recur, but it didn't. So to this day, still unexplained. And again, you have to consider other things that happened in the same area. Now, I was actually listening yesterday to a video. Dr. Marzulli was talking to Gil Zimmerman, who's their business partners now. Gil Zimmerman may have written more books on the giant bones here in America than anybody. He's maybe the expert on the subject. And he was actually saying, it caught my attention because I was listening while I was doing stuff. So I was multitasking, but it caught my attention because he mentioned Mansfield, Ohio. I used to live there. And he mentioned Mount Vernon, Ohio. And I used to live right by there. And there was a guy, Gil Zimmerman went to his house and talked to him. So it's not like he heard it through the grapevine or through a telephone game. He met with this guy, and I think the guy owns a farm, if I remember correctly, which would make sense. There's lots of farmland out there. And he had a mound on his property. And he also had weird lights that he noticed on his property, UFO orb type of stuff. And I'm pretty sure right after a sighting, well, two things happened if I remember correctly. One, I do believe they dug into the mound or something, and something was found in it. I don't think it was bones. If it was, I don't remember. They dug into the mound, and I'm pretty sure someone came and took whatever was in it. And the reason for it, even though it was his property, so it should belong to him, they had some kind of reason, we need to do archaeological study on this, something like that. So I think he allowed it. And then he also had, again, I think it was after he saw a UFO or orbs or something, right after this, 2 Apache helicopters come out of nowhere and are right there. And he's just like, that doesn't really happen over my property. So the mounds, what do the mounds have to do with UFOs or orbs or a signal coming from outer space? I think it all points to this same source, which is fallen angel demonic activity. Because it's amazing how many, where you see a hot spot of unexplained things happening, whether it's something very old that's a monument, or it could be a structure, an effigy, it could be a wall, it could be a map in the ground with stone, something with a celestial alignment that nobody could have built 1,500 years ago when they didn't know about this stuff, that type of thing. It's there's oftentimes UFO sightings in those areas, and definitely orbs or lights in the sky that move around and don't make sense. So I think what it points to is it's fallen angel activity. And I think the whole UFO thing is exactly that. They're not aliens. They're not coming from another planet. They're not trying to contact humanity to, have a friendly conversation or whatever. It's just that someone at some point opened a portal through who knows what, witchcraft. Or in this case, since we have the mounds here, which the Native Americans did not build, and giants were here, the giants were already half demonic. That's what they were. They were not natural people. So naturally, you're gonna, to quote Dr. Marzulli, when he talks about these megalithic sites that we can't explain and we can't even recreate some of them today with the technology that we have, he says that what he believes we're looking at is fallen angel technology, Nephilim architecture, meaning the technology necessary to build these megalithic sites, or like the Serpent Mound, where you need an aerial view, you need to know advanced mathematics to be able to do it, to say nothing of the manpower it would even take, and the tools that, again, no disrespect to the Native Americans, they just didn't have it. They didn't have it. So it points to someone with knowledge and technology ahead of its time. And then being bigger helps you move things too. So being able to construct things that people at the time couldn't. So that being said, why so much unexplained activity in one area? Because it's like a marked spot. Not that Ohio is like a, significant by itself, but it seems like you have a concentration of UFO activity or orbs, unexplained things that are happening in a certain place. It's not just like it's spread out everywhere across the country and it's the same amount and it can just happen randomly anywhere for any reason at any time. It seems like there's an uptick of this activity in certain spots. One being Mount Hermon, which is in like Israel. That's actually the OG of all portals, if you will. That's where the Watchers descended when they decided to sin and corrupt mankind. They descended on Mount Hermon, and to this day, it's the UN's got a building up there. Very interesting. That's at the base of that mountain. That's the Cave of Pan, or Caesarea Philippi, where Jesus said, "The gates of hell shall not prevail against the church, because I'm going to build it." And pagans, they would throw their sacrifices there, where the running water was, at the base of the mountain where the Cave of Pan was. So it's like you see spiritual activity in certain places, and you can usually find physical evidence of it. In our case in Ohio, you've got the mounds, you've got UFO sightings, you've got a weird signal that can't be explained. So I don't think. Again, if the fallen angels had advanced tech back in the day to be able to create things people couldn't then it would make sense. They probably are still advanced today. So we may be able to pick up a signal, but that doesn't mean that we can unpack it and figure out where it came from or why, or recreate it or anything like that. So obviously if you've been observing and dipping in and out and having dealings with humanity for thousands of years, how to communicate with them. You have access points. And again, I also think permission's probably been given by presidents or people in positions of authority who've opened themselves up to the demonic, and they've now given permission for certain activities to take place. So I think it's all just building to what's eventually going to come to fruition. Maybe when the church gets raptured and then the Antichrist can be revealed, then all of this stuff we get full disclosure, except it's not going to be the truth. It's going to be a deception. It'll be probably, these are aliens and they're from such and such planet. And so we can explain, oh, you're curious about the WOW signal from 1977 in Ohio? We did that to try to tell you guys we're out here. Okay. Oh, you wonder about how did the Native Americans, how were they able to build the mounds? Well, we helped. Same with the pyramids, same with Gilgal Raphaim, same with Stonehenge. Same with Sacsayhuaman in Peru, the megalithic, the walls. Same with Silistani, the big, whatever those things are. All of it. UFOs, that was us, which I think some of them are, but I also think some of the UFOs people see probably are crafts that our government has recreated at this point through back engineering. So some of them, they could be remote controlled, they could be manned by a human pilot, but many UFOs people see, I think, are just exactly, it's not an alien. It's just an evil entity of some kind, fallen angel type of whatever, demons and appearing a certain way. Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. So he doesn't need to look like the devil. He could show himself to be something else. In fact, I would bet, if he's a master deceiver, I would bet he doesn't really show himself for what he is, like, ever, if he can help it. Obviously Christians will pick up on it, but anyway, the wow signal. I find it interesting that it still can't be explained. I think that's the explanation. Again, and the reason why, it's not just like I think this because I read one really convincing book or I watched one really convincing documentary. It's like it fills in it helps you understand. If you read the Bible and you read Genesis 6 and you're like, what? And you read about giants, you're like, well, what happened to them or whatever, you get clarity on scripture. And I get it. A lot of Christians don't want to go there because they may read it and be like, I wonder what that's about. But then they just move on because it's like weird, giants. I thought that sounded like something I read in like a little kid's book about a beanstalk or something. You know what I mean? So people tend to just kind of like move on if they don't understand it. But if you'll study it, and then if you'll pay attention to what's going on, and I know people can bury their head in the sand today too and say, I don't believe UFOs, but it's too big to ignore. It's happening whether you're comfortable with the truth of it or not. It is happening. Not everyone who's seen a UFO is making it up or insane or doing LSD. Of course you have people who do, but like, it's a huge thing that's going on. Even the government is talking about it. You've got congressional hearings. You've got Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, in that disclosure video I mentioned in part 1. It's happening. And we know there's going to be global control that's going to set itself up on the earth to fulfill Bible prophecy. There's going to be an Antichrist. There's going to be a one world everything, and so, and how do people usually get controlled now? Fear. And so what would be more fearful than for the entire earth to find out aliens are real, you guys? And here they are, and they can come looking like nice guys, but it's gonna compel people, because they're going to be afraid. It's going to compel people into to be easily controlled and to just comply and do whatever we say, because there's all this uncertainty around. And don't worry, I'll bring stability and I'll bring order and I'll give you answers, but you just got to fall in line and we're going to take care of everything. This is good for humanity. See, you guys have been on the brink of war. There are wars. There have been wars. There's nuclear war, or there's about to be. You guys are going to kill each other. Your food supply is contaminated. You're running out of water. You're running out of natural resources. This is no longer sustainable. Humanity needs help. So here we are to be that help that you need. So you're just going to need to accept what we're offering. This is the next step for humanity. This is the upgrade. In fact, we have a literal upgrade that's going to affect your DNA. They're already messing with DNA. We've got CRISPR. We've got gene editing. Vaccines are messing with people's DNA. COVID was like such an aggressive, like outrageous attempt that it woke a lot of people up. I was literally listening to a neurosurgeon who's a Christian, and then another neurosurgeon that he works with, and they were both saying how they weren't really they like, obviously being surgeons, like knew about vaccines and knew about a bunch of stuff, but they didn't really like pay attention to what they didn't really think twice about all of the vaccines that were being given to newborns. And it wasn't until when the COVID jab came out and they were recommending it for children and pregnant women that they were like, you don't do that. That's those are the last two like demographics that you give a vaccine like this to. So this is not about a virus. They're like, there's something to this. And so they started looking into it and they're like, oh my goodness, they've been poisoning people. They've been causing, developmental disabilities in kids and stuff like that. So harming mothers too. It's like COVID, for as bad as it was and evil as the attempt was, it served a good purpose in a lot of ways, meaning that it woke a lot of people up. Because a lot of people who wanted nothing to do with God, started to wake up, be like, this is not like social or political. This is like on another level. So I think it was like a trial run in a lot of ways, to try to establish control and get people to comply with things that aren't right. And it didn't work. It didn't work. And it turned a lot of people into anarchists, kind of, where they're like, you know what, it is because you saw it, rebellion in a good way. Remember how like in March or April of 2020, the government was like, hey, don't go outside this weekend. And everybody was like, you know, because they said that I needed to stay in my house, I'm going to go outside for the first time in 9 years. And I'm going to go lick a lamppost if I want to. And you know what? I'm going to go exercise, even though I haven't exercised since the Cold War. But because you told me I can't, now I'm going to. So it's like a rebellion in a good way, because people were rebelling against the overreach of the government, and the government wasn't allowed to do that. So you saw that America still had this fight in it to rebel against what's wrong, and that was good, because we didn't cave to what they wanted. But anyway, so the wow signal, I think it was nothing more than a UFO event, even though there was no visible UFOs, just a radio signal. I think it was just one more thing that you can add to a very tall stack of unexplained and unnatural occurrences that will probably, when full disclosure comes, someone will take credit for, which will not be an alien, which will not be a good guy, will be nothing more than a fallen angel in dressed up as some kind of intelligent life from another planet, to further to pave the, you know, to kick off really the mass deception. How would you respond? Have you ever thought about that? Have you thought about how would you respond if, whether it's our president or it could happen in another country, someone says aliens show up? How would you respond? What would you do? What are you going to think? Because we're building toward that. Like I said, the disclosure has been coming in bits and pieces, just enough so that people will accept there's something to this. But if you don't really know, again, if you're unsure, you've got a gap of space here that you can fill in with something. That's why miscommunication leads to problems in relationships. All of a sudden, your husband's not taking your calls and he won't text you back. Then you start thinking, where is he? What's he doing? If you don't have information, you start filling in the gap with whatever. So, you know, there's been enough disclosure to get people like, something's up with this, but I don't really know what. So then naturally, if you are proposed a narrative that can seemingly check every box, meaning take credit for the pyramids, take credit for the missing, the abductions, take credit for crop circles, and all these other things that we kind of know can't really be explained. Hey, that was us, and it was us because we've been monitoring humanity. We've been wanting to help you and get involved, but it just wasn't the right time. But now you guys are on the brink of destroying yourselves. So here we are. So that's probably going to be something along those lines, the explanation you're going to be offered. So are you going to buy it? Or are you going to be awake and aware, hey, there's a coming great deception? Look at Bible prophecy unfolding. Look at what this is the thing. For the people who don't accept the Bible, I promise you, if you will do a study, and you can use AI and get it done in a matter of minutes, study what the Bible prophesied that's already happened, and then study what the Bible prophesies that has not happened yet. Specifically when it comes to like the Antichrist and to what's going to happen during the tribulation. And it is undeniable that you're seeing the setup. You're seeing the road work, the groundwork laid, the foundation laid for all of those things to come together and go in that direction. It's happening in front of our eyes. I mean, throw a dart at the board. You've got digital currency. You have facial recognition, ways of identifying, and you know, everything becoming digital, so it can all be put in one place. You can't even get to your money anymore. Once digital currency is a thing, you're owned by whoever is in control of your data. it's like, that's the biggest thing people need to be aware of. And once you start to see things through that framework, what the Bible said thousands of years ago was going to happen, and then you compare it to what's going on today, it's like, oh, so there's going to be two things you can do. One, you can accept the biblical narrative that can explain UFOs and explain these megalithic sites and explain all of what's to come, or you can refuse the biblical narrative and you can take whatever one you're going to be fed. And I don't know what third option there could be. You would have to somehow separate things and say they're unrelated. But then what explanations do you have? Either aliens built the pyramids and all these other things that we can't build, or it was fallen angels with the Nephilim, the giants. What else? People couldn't have done these things. So people are off the table. So you're going to have to come up with a third option, which is, I don't know what. I don't know what. You're something came out of the ground and made them. I mean, I don't know. I guess there are people who think we live in a simulation. I suppose you could go with that and say all of this stuff is, but then who's controlling the simulation? Eventually you're going to get to a supernatural explanation one way or another, and there's got to be a source for it. So either God is true and the Bible is true and the devil's working all these things, or you can reject God and say there is a higher power, there's some kind of force that's bigger than us. So then you can just make something up, which conveniently the devil can work with that. He doesn't have to be like, you know what, swear your fealty to Satan and go ahead and worship the Antichrist. As long as you reject Christ, Satan's good. That's why there are so many religions to pick from. Oh, you want to be a Muslim? Cool. You want to be a Hindu? Cool. You want to be an atheist? Cool. It doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you don't believe one thing, which is that the God of the Bible is real. The Bible's true, and there's only one way to heaven, and it's through a person called Jesus. So it doesn't matter which deception you buy, as long as you reject the truth. I'm telling you, though, if you will just do a study, look at what the Bible says prophetically, look at what's going on around you. And then if you're interested in this stuff, I like history. I like unexplained things. I like conspiracies, and you know, more often than not, conspiracy theories have a lot of truth to them. Not always. People can make one out of anything. You know, I don't think Elvis is alive. People will do, you know, people believe Charlie Kirk is alive. I don't think that was an actor. I don't think it was a person in a mask. I think that was Charlie Kirk, and he got shot exactly how we all saw, and he's in heaven. I don't think he's alive somewhere in witness protection. I don't. So you do need to touch grass. You do need to stay grounded. But you also should not deny facts, even if they're uncomfortable or seemingly very unnatural. Anyway, I'm going to end part 2. I told you this would be pretty short. I'm going to pop these up real quick. The ways to find me. I should be live on Rumble, X, and Instagram. I don't know if they're catching up. I don't know if Instagram's even working. I don't know if they can catch up or not. If not, it's whatever. I will post also to YouTube and Substack and Spotify when I'm done. But those are all the ways where Amber Alert Podcast exists. And then if you want to support, those are the ways that you can. Email me if there's something you have a question about when it comes to that. And then, like I said at the beginning of part 1, I don't know if I said it at the beginning of part 2, I am going to end this live video and we're going to jump into part 3. I will start part 3 it's 6:53 now. I'm going to start it at 7:05. Okay. And part 3 is going to be, speaking of the Bible, we're going to get into the Bible. And what's interesting about this is I want to talk about speaking God's word over yourself, over your life, but also the science that we're going to get into. This is why, again, people think you either believe science or you believe the Bible. That's not true. Science agrees with the Bible, and we're finally catching up because we've made these advances and we've learned a lot more, and technology has increased. We've gotten to the point where science is catching up with what the Bible said, and we can now confirm it with science, like with data, with observations, with experiments. So I'm going to get into that because there's science to support what I'm going to talk about. So follow me into part 3. We'll be at 7:05 here in about 11 minutes. All right. God bless you and see you then.